Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Travis Talks. Today I want to talk about Riot Pls. Now, if you guys might have noticed, last week the second iteration of Riot Pls came out, and this is a series that so far has not been really well received by the community. Historically, based on these past two, Riot uses this to talk about features that the community wants to know about, or sort of situations that the community wants to hear from Riot about that Riot maybe is a little uncomfortable talking about. And so this week they've come out talking about Sandbox Mode and Dynamic Queue being the two big things. But before we get into that, I want to talk about how they introduced this Riot Pls post. So normally, if you think about what the average fan wants to know about when they go into one of these posts, they're like, tell me why solo queue isn't here. Why is Dynamic Queue here? When is this going to get solved? What's going on with Sandbox Mode? They just want to know what the heck is going on. Riot, on the other hand, comes into the article, into the post, and they just start off with this sort of philosophical meandering by saying, we want League of Legends to become a global sport that lasts for generations. We're not just talking about the LCS. We're talking about League as a way of life, a competitive hobby, pastime, blah, blah, blah. Imagine growing up with League the same way others have grown up with basketball, baseball, etc., etc., etc. Ultimately, this is our goal, to foster love of the sport, etc., etc. Now, I think it's fine for somebody to say something like that. That's a great way to say, like, hey, this is our vision going into 2016. This is the kind of stuff we want to do. I think it's great to hear one of the owners of the company or like a higher up executive, a spokesperson, say these kind of things. But ultimately, when you're starting off a post about sort of features that people want to know about or what's going on, you shouldn't probably start off by coming down from the mountain and expounding your sort of spiritual reasonings about League of Legends and your approach and all this kind of thing. You start off by saying, like, hey, we know you guys want this stuff. Here's what's going on here. And the interesting thing about it is that I feel like Riot does such a good job of communicating in certain areas. And you kind of look at the way they do their patch notes or their patch rundowns when they're talking about new stuff coming out, or even the stuff that they did at the end of last year, right before the start of the season. And what's interesting about those moments is that I think the success there is that Riot sounds like they're just coming across really real and honest and just being kind of blunt. Now let's move on to Sandbox Mode. Sandbox Mode was, if you may remember, something that they discussed in the last Riot Pls post, where they basically said that they didn't really feel like it was required, and they instantly got a lot of negative feedback from the community, from pros, from the industry as a whole, and so they decided to revisit it in this post. The interesting thing is that they go about it and they say basically like, okay, we agree this is something we need to do. The team that would be working on it is busy doing something else, so we can't even give you an idea of when this will happen, but we understand it's something that you want. Really, there's like nothing really concrete or interesting that you can take away from it. They've just basically changed their mind, which is fine, but ultimately not very satisfying. So again, it's not like anybody's going to read that section and feel comfortable and be like, oh, they changed their mind. It's just sort of a thing. So the real thing here, though, was Dynamic Queue. And Dynamic Queue is a situation where you may remember basically they introduced this whole thing. Then eventually they said that they were going to bring back solo queue after a little bit. A little bit became a lot of bit. And we haven't seen any sight from it. And they've started to basically imply that it's not coming anytime soon. And here they do just that. So everybody was kind of confused about what was going on there. Here's a section towards the start of that, or here's a quote from the start of that section where they say, when the team made its recent update, a lot of players took away the conclusion of, quote, no solo queue, and that we were hiding from a hard conversation by being purposely vague. In reality, we're not making a call on solo queue because there are some critical issues we need to fix in Dynamic Queue to understand what's actually missing. Then they continue to talk in a way that is very vague and that seems like they're hiding from something. It's very, very confusing. They just sort of ramble and rant about why they think Dynamic Queue is more important, and there's ultimately, again, no satisfying conclusion. And it's hard to know, like, is solo queue actually coming? Is it not? It sounds like they just want to say that it's not coming. It is really hard to understand what's going on there. And again, they talk about why they think Dynamic Queue is better and then provide no concrete evidence or understanding as to why that's the case. It's really simple in my mind. Like, you might not get people to agree with you, but at least if you have some sort of concrete evidence or something that shows what your reasoning is, you'll be good. So this is an area where I would have said Riot should just drown everyone in data. Show me why there's way more engagement with Dynamic Queue. Tell me why you're seeing less reports now that Dynamic Queue has happened and it seems like people are having a good time. So that even if it looks like the pro players aren't happy, at least you're showing evidence that a broader set of people are happy. any kind of evidence, any kind of information that you can share that tells me why dynamic queue is good. I still might not agree with you. The community still might not agree with you. But at the end of the day, at least you're saying something instead of being, again, purposely vague and not really giving any information, which is funny because that's what you're saying people or think is happening. It's just very strange. And so ultimately, this is the thing that's kind of ironic here, is that I think that the community and the audience and everyone will take away this feeling or the sentiment that Riot is out of touch with their players, that they don't understand what's going on here, that they don't really care about being a player-focused company in the way that they say they are, because they seem to just kind of be ignoring their concerns, coming down, again, in this kind of proclamatory way where they're just sort of saying, like, this is our beliefs. You may think that this is what you want. It's not really what you want. Not really giving any evidence to this kind of thing, saying we know you want Sandbox Mode, but we're not really interested in working on it right now. It feels so out of touch, and it, again, fails at that main thing that Riot is good at, which is being open, honest, and real, and just speaking like person to person with their audience rather than this kind of weird philosophical mantra thing. And I think what's sad there is that this is a company that is still trying desperately to connect with its players. Not very many people know this, but there was this sort of recent thing that occurred within the company called de-riotizing accounts. For those of you that didn't know, basically whenever you became an employee at Riot, one of the perks was that you basically got everything unlocked for free. So champion skins, they basically took your account and riotized it by unlocking all this stuff. It was a really cool perk that you got when joining the company, especially if you really like League of Legends. You never have to really pay or worry about a skin again. Recently, what occurred was that, and I don't know if this was from the executives or whatever, but there was this decision within the company to de-riotize everybody's accounts. And so if you had this account, you had everything unlocked, they basically took all that stuff away from you. I think they gave them like an RP stipend or something like that, so you still had a little bit of money you could spend on the game, but you didn't get everything for free. And the idea behind this was that they felt as though they were feared that internally people didn't really know what it was like to play League of Legends as a player because you got everything unlocked for free. So these sort of things and experiences that were behind pretty big paywalls or pretty big gates, it was hard to identify those things as a problem within the company because nobody ever really experienced them. So again, this is a situation where, and I can tell you, I don't think all the employees were happy about this. Basically took away all this free stuff, and yet they still went through with it because they felt as though this was going to lead to a better understanding of what the average player experiences whenever they play League of Legends. So I think the company's still really trying, and I think that there are moments where they succeed. It's just disappointing to me that with Riot Pls, at least, they seem to look so out of touch. Hopefully they end up resolving that down the road and they rethink about this kind of thing and try to get it fixed. Well, it's been a little bit since I've done one of these Travis Talks. I hope you all enjoyed it. For more esports coverage, stay tuned to esports.yahoo.com.